I used to think bad posture was just part of getting older, until I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror and didn't recognize the hunched-over figure staring back. That was my wake-up call. I knew something had to change, and let me tell you, it can change. You don't have to accept the aches, the slouch, or the shrinking feeling. Let me walk you through how I fixed my posture after 60 and how you can too. The moment I realized something was off. I never thought much about posture when I was younger. You sit, you stand, you go about your day. It all seemed automatic. But somewhere along the line between raising kids, chasing careers, and simply aging, I stopped paying attention to how I was holding myself. It wasn't until one afternoon, while I was out shopping, that everything changed. I was trying on a new coat in front of one of those tall department store mirrors. As I buttoned it up, I glanced at my reflection and froze. Who was that person looking back at me? My shoulders were hunched, my head poked slightly forward. My back had a soft curve that I didn't recognize. I looked smaller somehow. Not physically, maybe, but like my body was folding in on itself, as if it had given up on standing tall. That image stayed with me longer than I expected. It wasn't about vanity. It was something deeper. A sudden awareness that I was shrinking, not just in posture, but in presence. I left the store without buying the coat. That night, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror and did something I hadn't done in years. I took a long, honest look at myself. I tried standing as straight as I could. It felt unnatural. My back protested, my shoulders resisted, and after just a minute, I gave in and relaxed, right back into that familiar slump. That's when I knew this wasn't just a fluke. This was my new normal, and it wasn't okay with me. You see, posture isn't just about how we look, it's about how we live. When your posture is off, everything starts to shift. Your balance weakens, your breathing gets shallow, even your digestion can suffer. Not to mention the subtle way it affects your confidence. I didn't realize how much I had stopped making eye contact, or how often I avoided mirrors, or why I felt so tired after short walks. Looking back, the signs had been there for a while. I'd been getting more frequent neck aches, especially after reading or watching TV for long periods. My lower back often felt stiff in the mornings. I noticed that I was taking smaller steps, and my stride didn't feel as natural, and bending down to pick something up? That had started feeling like a chore. I just hadn't connected all these things to posture. What hit me the hardest, though, was when my granddaughter asked me, "Grandma, why do you walk like that now?" Children don't filter their observations. They say what they see. And what she saw was a posture that had changed. That simple, innocent question made my heart sink, not because she meant anything bad by it, but because she was right. That very night, I made a promise to myself. I said, no more ignoring the signs. No more chalking everything up to age. If there's a way to fix this, I'm going to find it. But I'll be honest, it was overwhelming at first. I didn't know where to start. The internet was full of advice, half of which was for people, half my age, doing yoga on mountaintops or lifting weights like bodybuilders. That wasn't me. I wasn't looking to become an athlete. I just wanted to stand tall again. I wanted to feel aligned, balanced, and strong, not stiff and unsure. I wanted to walk into a room without looking like life had bent me down. I wanted to feel like myself again. So I started small. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror again and took a deep breath. I placed my hands on my hips and gently rolled my shoulders back. It felt odd, but a little better than the day before. I held that position for just 30 seconds, then moved on. But I made a mental note to try again the next day. That was my starting point. A tiny, awkward effort to reclaim something I didn't even know I had lost. And let me tell you, that small step was the beginning of a big transformation. Not just physically, but mentally. Because with every inch I regained in posture, I felt like I was gaining back a part of myself, a sense of control, of purpose, of dignity. Fixing my posture didn't happen overnight. It took patience, consistency, and a lot of self-compassion. But most of all, it took that moment, that realization in the mirror, that gave me the courage to begin. If you're watching this and thinking, that sounds like me, then I want you to know something important. You are not stuck like this. No matter your age, your body is capable of change. Your muscles can learn, your spine can adapt, and your spirit, well, that's the part that never gets old. You just have to begin. So, now that you know my turning point, the moment I realized something was off, let's move forward together. Understanding the root causes. Not just the symptoms. After that eye-opening moment in the mirror, I was ready to take action. But I quickly realized something important. I couldn't fix what I didn't understand. Sure, I could force myself to sit up straight or try to pull my shoulders back, but within minutes, I'd be right back in that same slouched position. It felt like trying to mop up water without turning off the faucet. I was addressing the symptom, not the source. So I decided to dig a little deeper. I asked myself, why is my body defaulting to this poor posture? What's pulling me down, physically and emotionally? And let me tell you, the answers surprised me. The first thing I learned is that posture isn't just about how you sit or stand, it's about how your entire body works together. Over the years, our muscles can get weaker, tighter, or even asleep from lack of use. And if you're like me, you've probably spent decades taking care of everyone else, putting yourself last, and maybe not moving as much as you used to. It turns out, aging doesn't destroy our posture. Our habits do. For starters, I discovered that one of my biggest problems was weak core muscles. I always thought core meant six-pack abs and endless crunches, so I had ignored that area entirely. But I learned that the core actually includes the deep muscles around your spine, your pelvis, and even your lower back. They're the body's natural support system. When those muscles weaken, which they often do as we age, it's like trying to stack a tower of blocks with no base. Everything starts to collapse inward. I realized that years of sitting at desks, in cars, on couches, had caused my core muscles to weaken and my hip flexors to tighten. Those tight hip flexors were pulling my pelvis forward, which created that lower back arch and made standing up straight uncomfortable. No wonder I couldn't hold good posture for more than a few seconds. Then I looked at my shoulders. I used to carry bags, lift groceries, even hold grandbabies without thinking twice. But over time, I noticed my shoulders creeping forward. It wasn't until I really paid attention that I realized how rounded they had become. My chest muscles were tight, and my upper back muscles, especially between the shoulder blades, were underused. That combination? It's like your body is slowly folding in on itself. Even my neck had gotten involved. I'd developed what they call text neck, or forward head posture. I don't even use a smartphone that much, but years of reading, sewing, watching TV, and even cooking with my head tilted down had trained my neck to lean forward unnaturally. That put stress on my spine and caused those nagging neck aches. But the most surprising discovery came from an emotional angle. I hadn't considered how stress, self-perception, and aging mindset could impact posture. Think about it. When we feel anxious, discouraged, or invisible, what do? We curl in. We protect ourselves. We shrink. And over time, our bodies start reflecting that internal posture. I realized that I had internalized a subtle belief that poor posture was just part of getting older. It was as if my body had given in to a story I didn't even know I was telling myself. That belief had to go. Once I began to understand the deeper causes, weak muscles, tight joints, bad habits, and even emotional weight, I finally saw the full picture. And more importantly, I understood why just telling myself to stand up straight never worked. That's not how posture is fixed. It has to be rebuilt from the inside out, slowly, consistently, and with compassion. So I started tracking little things. How often was I sitting each day? Was I stretching? Was I moving enough? Was I breathing fully and deeply or shallow and tight? One by one, I began noticing the patterns. For instance, I was spending long stretches sitting in a recliner, watching TV in the evenings. The soft cushions were comfortable, but they were doing nothing for my spine. I'd rise from that chair feeling stiffer than when I sat down. And my mornings? I was waking up and heading straight to the kitchen, barely moving. My spine after hours of sleep. No stretching, no activation, just coffee and news. No wonder my back felt locked until lunchtime. Even my walking posture had slipped. I used to stride tall and confident. But now, I was taking shorter, slower steps, with my eyes down and shoulders rounded. Not because I wanted to, but because my body had forgotten how it should move. But here's the empowering part. Once I understood the why, I could finally take meaningful action. I didn't have to guess anymore. I wasn't just reacting, I was rebuilding. I began with gentle stretches for my hips, chest, and spine. I added breathing exercises to expand my rib cage and activate my diaphragm. I did light strengthening for my core and upper back. No crunches or push-ups, just simple seated movements and standing balances. And perhaps most importantly, I changed how I thought about posture. I stopped seeing it as a punishment or correction. Instead, I saw it as an invitation to come back to myself, to reclaim my space in the world. Every time I stood tall, even for a few seconds, I felt a little more alive. I no longer saw good posture as a chore. I saw it as freedom. So if you're watching this and you've been frustrated, confused, or even ashamed of how your body has changed, please hear this. It's not your fault. And it's not too late. You don't need to be perfect or pain-free or flexible like a gymnast. You just need to understand the real reasons behind your posture changes, because once you do, everything becomes possible again. And I'll be here, with you, step by step, as we go through the exact daily habits and gentle movements that helped me transform, without overwhelming my body. But before we get to the how, we need to look at something you might not expect. The small, daily, routines that are quietly making things worse. The daily habits that were secretly making things worse. Once I understood what was causing my poor posture, weak core, tight hips, rounded shoulders, I felt empowered. But there was still something holding me back, something more subtle and harder to spot. That's when it hit me. It wasn't just about what I wasn't doing. It was also about what I was doing every single day, without even thinking about it. I started to notice that the small, seemingly innocent routines I'd built over the years were quietly working against me. Let me give you a few examples. Maybe you'll recognize some of them in your own life. The recliner trap. For as long as I can remember, I loved curling up in my recliner with a good book, a warm blanket, or my evening cup of tea. It felt like a little slice of heaven. But here's the problem. Recliners put your spine in a C shape. Your hips are tucked under, your back curves, and your head naturally leans forward. I was spending 2, sometimes 3 hours in that chair each night. At first, I thought, well, I'm relaxing. Isn't that good for me? But over time, my body started adapting to that slouched position. What felt good in the moment was actually training my muscles to weaken and tighten in all the wrong places. I was losing the natural curve of my lower back and encouraging my upper spine to round even more. When I realized this, I didn't toss the recliner, but I did start using a small lumbar pillow behind my lower back, and I made sure to get up every 30 minutes and move around. Even just standing up and reaching for the ceiling made a difference. The downward glance, I never thought of myself as someone who stared at screens all day, but I had a habit of looking down, whether it was reading the newspaper, doing crossword, puzzles, scrolling on my phone, or knitting. My head was constantly tilted forward. That forward head posture added pressure on my neck and shoulders. I later learned that for every inch your head leans forward, it adds about 10 pounds of pressure on your neck muscles. No wonder I was getting frequent headaches and that tight, pulling sensation across my upper back. Once I realized this, I made some easy changes. I started holding my phone and books a bit higher, closer to eye level. I stacked a few books under my tablet or crossword puzzles to avoid constantly bending my neck. And when watching TV, I made sure the screen was at a level where I didn't have to tilt my head down. These were tiny tweaks, but over time, they started to relieve the pressure in my neck and shoulders. The help first, move later. Habit. Also realized that I'd fallen into the habit of putting everyone else first, and myself last. If you've spent decades caring for kids, grandkids, partners, or even coworkers, you probably know the feeling. You skip meals, skip exercise, skip rest. You rush through your day without checking in with your body. I'd wake up, start cooking or cleaning, then run errands or babysit without giving my body a proper warm-up. I was asking my joints and muscles to perform without preparing them. And guess what? That stiffness in the morning, that tight back by evening, it was all my body's way of saying, "Hey, I need attention too." So I made a deal with myself. Every morning, before I picked up a broom or a grocery bag, I'd take just 5 minutes to stretch and move. I began calling it my body wake-up routine. A few gentle twists, shoulder rolls, and hip circles. Nothing intense, just enough to tell my body, "I see you. Let's get ready." That small change alone made my day smoother and my posture better. The sitting marathon. I used to pride myself on how much I could get done without taking breaks. Sit down to pay bills, respond to emails, work on my hobbies. I'd go for hours. It felt productive, but my body paid the price. What I didn't know then is that sitting for long stretches is one of the fastest ways to deteriorate your posture. When you sit too long, your hip flexors tighten, your glutes go to sleep, and your back muscles get lazy. Even with perfect posture, sitting without breaks can set you back. So I started using a simple kitchen timer. Every 30 to 45 minutes, I'd stand up, stretch, take a few steps, or walk to the kitchen for water. These mini breaks didn't slow me down. They actually gave me more energy. Now standing feels more natural than ever. And the tightness in my hips? It's nearly gone. Holding stress in my body, I didn't realize how much emotional tension I was carrying, especially in my shoulders and neck. Every time I worried about money, health, or family, I'd tighten up. My shoulders would creep toward my ears, my jaw would clench, and I'd stop breathing fully. It's like my body was bracing for something, even when there was no danger. And over time, that became my new default posture. Tense, guarded, hunched. It took some awareness and gentle reminders to start letting go. I began practicing intentional breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. I imagined dropping my shoulders every time I exhaled. Sometimes I'd place a hand on my chest and just remind myself, "You're safe. You're okay. You can relax." This may sound small, but releasing that emotional tension was one of the most powerful posture corrections I've ever made. How I turned it around. Once I became aware of these daily habits, I didn't try to fix everything overnight. I just chose, one small change at a time. I started by adjusting my seating, then added daily stretch breaks, then worked on screen and book height. Each adjustment was like a little vote in favor of better posture, and slowly I began to feel the difference. Could walk longer without back pain. I noticed my shoulders were more open. Even my mood improved, because when you stand taller, you feel taller. Now I no longer live in fear of getting old. I live in awareness. I pay attention to how I sit, how I move, and how I treat my body. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being present. So if you're watching this and wondering why nothing seems to be working, even after you've stretched or tried to sit straight, take a look at your daily routines. What small habits are working against your posture? Because sometimes the fix isn't about doing more, It's about doing less of the wrong things. And in the next section, I'll show you exactly what I started doing. My simple morning movements that turned everything around. The simple moves I started doing. Every morning, by the time I uncovered the root causes of my posture problems and cleaned up the daily habits that were silently making them worse, I realized something very important. Change had to begin the moment I got out of bed. You see, I used to start my mornings on autopilot, rolling out of bed, grabbing my robe, heading to the kitchen, and slowly warming up with coffee and the morning news. My body stayed stiff, tight, and sleepy for hours. And then I'd wonder why I couldn't stand tall by lunchtime. One day I asked myself, what if I used the first few minutes of my day to realign my body? Not with anything intense or complicated. I didn't need a gym membership, spandex, or a yoga mat. I just needed to wake up my body in a gentle, intelligent way. That's when I created what I now call my 5-minute morning reset. And let me tell you, those 5 minutes changed my life. So let me walk you through it. Exactly what I started doing, and why each move made such a big difference in my posture, energy, and confidence. The spine awakening stretch. This is always where I start. I sit on the edge of my bed with both feet planted on the floor. Then I raise my arms up overhead, interlace my fingers, and stretch toward the ceiling, gently lengthening my spine. As I reach upward, I take a slow, deep breath in. On the exhale, I drop my arms and gently roll my shoulders backward 3 times. That's it. Just this one stretch gets my spine out of that curled-up sleeping position and reminds my body what it feels like to be long and upright. It feels like I'm creating space in my back between each vertebra. After doing this for a week, I noticed I no longer walked to the bathroom like a rusty robot. Chin tucks. To reclaim my neck, I never thought about my neck until it started aching. I'd spent years with my head slightly forward, reading, cooking, looking at my phone. Over time, my neck muscles forgot what neutral even felt like. So now, every morning, I do this simple move. While sitting or standing tall, I gently pull my chin straight back, as if I'm trying to make a double chin. Yes, it looks funny, but it works. I hold that for 3 seconds and then release. I repeat it 10 times. This move strengthens the deep muscles in my neck and brings my head back over my shoulders, where it belongs. Within a couple of weeks, my neck pain started fading, and I could actually feel my head sitting lighter on my spine. 3. Shoulder rolls and squeezes. To open the chest, one of the biggest culprits behind poor posture is tight chest muscles and weak upper back muscles. So after my chin tucks, I do a set of slow shoulder rolls, forward 5 times, then backward 5 times. It gets the blood flowing and releases tension from sleeping curled up. Then I do something even more powerful. I squeeze my shoulder blades together like I'm trying to hold a pencil between them. I hold that squeeze for 5 seconds, then release. I repeat that about 10 times. That one move, it's been my best friend. It wakes up the muscles between my shoulder blades, muscles that were basically asleep for years. Strengthening those helped pull my shoulders back naturally without me forcing it. Hip circles. To loosen my pelvis. I used to have that stiff, tilted pelvis that made standing tall uncomfortable. I didn't even realize my hips had anything to do with my posture until I started moving them in the morning. So now I stand up, hold onto a chair for balance, and do gentle hip circles, 5 in each direction. These aren't big hula hoop moves. Just small, slow rotations to warm up the hip joints, stretch the hip flexors, and signal to my body, we're not sitting all day today. I found this especially helpful for those first few steps of the morning, which used to feel like I was walking on tight ropes. Now my stride feels more open and balanced. Marching in place. To activate the core, I'm not doing jumping jacks or jogging at sunrise. Just a simple, gentle march in place, lifting one knee at a time, slowly, with purpose. As I march, I focus on keeping my spine tall and engaging my belly muscles slightly. I do this for about 30 seconds to a minute. It gets my blood moving, wakes up my abdominal muscles, and warms up my whole body. And maybe the most surprising part? It lifts my mood. Something about marching, even slowly, makes me feel alert and alive. It sets the tone for the day. Bonus: deep belly breathing. I used to breathe like a bird, short, shallow breaths from my chest. But deep breathing not only helps with posture, it also reduces tension in the shoulders and opens up the rib cage. So before I wrap up my routine, I place one hand on my belly and one on my chest. I inhale through my nose, letting my belly expand, like a balloon. Then I exhale through my mouth slowly, letting everything soften. I do this 5 times, and each time I feel my whole body settle into calm alignment. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's been the perfect way to end my morning. Reset why this routine works. You see, the key isn't intensity, it's consistency. These movements are gentle enough that I can do them every single morning, even on days when I'm tired or achy. And because they target the areas that matter most, spine, neck, shoulders, hips, and core, they deliver real, lasting results. Noticed improvements within the first week. Less tightness in the morning, more awareness of my body during the day, and even better balance while walking. And over time, these tiny movements began to retrain my posture, without me ever having to force it. Best of all, I actually looked forward to doing them. It became a peaceful ritual, a gift I gave myself before the day began. So if you've been thinking, where do I even start? This is it. Start small, start simple, start in the morning, because every day you wake up, you get a chance to realign, not just your body, but your outlook. You're not just fixing posture, you're reclaiming your space, your strength, and your sense of presence. And in our final section, I'll share the biggest surprise of all: how fixing my posture changed more than just my body. It changed my confidence, my mindset, and even the way I walk into a room. How better posture changed my life, and it can change yours too. When I first started this journey, I never imagined how much fixing my posture would affect everything else in my life. Back then, I just wanted relief from the aching back, the stiff neck, the sluggish energy. I wanted to walk down the sidewalk without hunching or needing to sit every few minutes. I wasn't thinking about confidence, presence, or the emotional side of it. But now, looking back, I can say this without hesitation. Fixing my posture didn't just change the way I stood. It changed the way I lived. Let me take you inside that transformation. The physical relief was just the beginning. At first, the changes were subtle. After just a week of my morning reset, I noticed I wasn't groaning. Every time I got out of a chair, my lower back didn't feel so tight after sitting. I could walk for longer without needing to stop and stretch. It was like my body was saying, "Thank you. I've been waiting for this." Then came the real test, my granddaughter's dance recital. Usually, sitting through one of those meant constant fidgeting in the folding chairs, shifting from side to side, and standing up halfway through because my back couldn't take it. But that time was different. I sat tall. My spine was supported, my shoulders relaxed. I felt grounded in my seat and pain-free. When I stood to applaud, I didn't need to brace myself or hold on to the chair. I just stood up, easily, proudly. That night, I smiled to myself and whispered, "It's working." My confidence returned, 1 inch at a time. Something amazing started happening around week 3. People began commenting on how I looked. "You've lost weight," someone said. I hadn't. "You seem taller," another friend said. I wasn't. What had changed was my posture. I was carrying myself differently, shoulders back, chest open, chin level. I wasn't shrinking into myself or apologizing for taking up space. I stood with presence, and with that physical shift came a mental one. I began to feel more confident, not in a flashy way, but in a quiet, unshakable way. I walked into rooms like I belonged there. I made eye contact more. I smiled more. I didn't realize how much I had been shrinking, not just physically, but emotionally, until I stopped doing it. It was like rediscovering a part of myself I thought I'd lost decades ago. Everyday tasks became easier. One of the biggest surprises was how much better I functioned during daily chores. I no longer dreaded laundry day. I could bend to empty the dishwasher without my back seizing up. I didn't need to brace myself every time I got into the car or reach for the counter when I stepped out of the shower. It felt like my body was cooperating again, instead of resisting. My balance improved, too. I wasn't as afraid of tripping over the curb or slipping in the kitchen. I could lift my grocery bags with more ease because my core was engaged and my spine was aligned. These might sound like small wins, but let me tell you, when you're over 60, these are major victories. My mood lifted, and so did my outlook. One day, I caught myself humming in the kitchen. Just humming. For no reason. And I realized I hadn't done that in years. It wasn't just because I felt physically better. It was because I felt more hopeful, more connected to my body, more in control. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was on a slow decline toward frailty. I felt like I was rising. There's something about standing tall that affects the way you see the world and yourself. When you stand with purpose, your brain follows. You breathe deeper, think more clearly, even digest food better. And studies have shown it. Posture actually influences your hormones, your stress response, and your overall mental health. But I didn't need a study to tell me that. I could feel it. I was lighter, inside and out. I started showing up in my life. Again, here's the real truth. I had slowly been disappearing from my own life. I said no to gatherings because I didn't want to deal with the discomfort. I skipped walking clubs and meetups because I feared being the slowest one. I avoided photos because I hated how hunched I looked, but after fixing my posture, I started saying yes again. Yes to Sunday brunch with friends. Yes to volunteering at the library. Yes to family photos. I stood tall in them now, and I was proud of what people saw. I even started dressing differently. I pulled out old scarves and jackets I hadn't worn in years. Not because I was trying to impress anyone, but because I finally felt like me again. And the best part? It's not too late, ever. Here's what I want you to know, especially if you've made it this far in the video. You are not broken. You are not too old. And your body is not done growing or healing. I spent over 6 decades living in a body that I thought was stuck. But with a little attention, consistency, and kindness, I found strength I didn't know I had. You don't need fancy equipment or painful routines. You just need to start small. Notice your posture. Move with purpose. Breathe with intention. And give your body the message, I still care about you, because your posture is more than just physical. It's how you greet the world. It's how you carry your stories, your memories, your future. And trust me, when you change how you carry yourself, you change everything else. Your posture is your power. I used to think posture was just about looking good. Now I know better. Posture is about living well. It's about standing in your truth, moving with confidence, and aging with grace. And yes, even thriving. So as we wrap up this series, I want to thank you for walking this journey with me. We've explored the silent causes of poor posture after 60, how I discovered the truth about my own alignment, the daily habits that were quietly sabotaging my body, the simple moves that helped me stand tall again, and finally, how this entire process transformed not just my posture, but my life. I hope my story reminds you that it's never too late to stand taller. Feel stronger and live fuller. You deserve that. We all do.